zoning hearing ordinance in session now. Let's begin with the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first application you're going to hear is from Mark Rosenberg of 603 Anthony Drive. Mr. Rosenberg, will you please sworn in? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, this is the application of Mark S. Rosenberg for a variance from Section 1909A of the zoning ordinance to allow the installation of an 8-foot-high fence where no greater than 6 feet high is permitted. Property is located at 603 Anthony Drive in the AA residential zoning district.
Thank you, Mr. Sander. Could you be sworn in, Mr. Rosenberg? Sure.
Mark S. Rosenberg. Yes, I did. Thank you.
Mrs. Rosenberg, do you need to be sworn in too?
Okay. Kathy Siegel Rosenberg.
Please use solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hey, could you give us some detail on what you propose to do?
We're seeking relief. I can have a seat. Thank you. Yeah, we're seeking relief to have a fence, an 8-foot fence, where only a 6-foot fence is allowed. It's not a privacy fence. In my packet, I was able to pull up some photographs of what the fence would look like. We have a deer infestation problem, but I have a very unique property in that we are all three sides of my rear yard, and this is just for our rear yard, not the front yard. All three sides of our rear yard are surrounded by woods, and in the front of the house would actually would be the fourth side, and so there's no concerns with regard to the neighbors. I've spoken with them; they certainly have no problem with that. We have a deer infestation problem. We have ticks. We have deer excrement. I mean, it's happening, but what we're trying to do is not to eliminate the deer in the yard, just so they can walk around the yard at this point. And at the very smallest side, it's 24 feet between my property and the property behind us, which would be the Martin Luther King School. And they also have a wooded area, about a 20-foot wooded area, also buffer zone. So the deer can walk around. I just don't want them walking through anymore. And we have grandkids and a dog, and it's become a real nuisance. We've been in the township going on 32 years, and it gets worse and worse every year. I'm sure everybody, you can't grow flowers anymore. I mean, I plant boulders and rocks anymore. That's the only thing. They eat everything.
Yeah.
So we're trying to do that, and I want to be as conscious as I can to the township and my neighbors. So the fence, we were going with a black tinsel fence, which the fence people told me are much less visible than the chrome fence. Yeah, and that's in essence what we're trying to do, keep away the ticks and be able to enjoy our backyard, which we have done, but we have not done recently.
Okay, I understand. Okay, thank you. Anything to add, or is that it?
That's essentially. I'll be happy to respond to any questions that you may have.
Sure. I think we'll look for questions from the board. Mr. Higgins, do you have any?
I don't have a question, but before I came, I couldn't believe that a deer could jump over a 6-foot fence when I Googled it, and yes, I can.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I put on YouTube, and you have many of them. They don't even need a running start. They can just hurdle over the fence. So real. Well, you have to dig underground for that. I can't help you with that, but I think you got to go underground for that.
Thank you. Ms. Lee, do you have any questions?
No, we don't usually get interesting exhibits on these, so thank you for the close-up of the
Well, you know what? When you wake up in the morning, you're going for a cup of coffee, but you get to see that pretty face looking at you. You know, I just immediately took a photograph, and it seems like the deer really like my backyard, as there were 7 in the other photograph. Yeah.
Mr. Aprilli, do you have any questions?
Is that the fence?
That's what the fence will look like, yes.
Thank you. Yeah, so you're looking for a 10-foot gate, is that correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
with the understanding if a EMS or the police need to get through, you can have a 6-foot gate for the lawnmowers and
Okay.
everything, but a 10-foot gate to allow any EMS, hopefully that would not be necessary at any point.
Okay.
But I wanted to get approval from the board, so we were trying to think of everything.
Sure, that's great. No, thank you. I know, and your property is set far
We're
enough.
way set
Yeah,
back,
I
right,
checked it out.
right,
I
yeah.
checked it out, yeah. Well, in fact, I live on the other side. I live on the other side of the Silver Springs.
Okay.
I live on Warrior Road.
Oh, sure.
I see your point with getting the tensile fence, because my next door neighbor has a 54-inch aluminum picket fence, and about 3 weeks ago, a fawn slipped through and spent 16 hours in his backyard until its mother came to collect it. So we have the same deer issues.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's.
Yeah, right, exactly. I stay in one spot. I know I find scat in my yard, stuff like that when I'm cutting. So I understand your issues. As long as your neighbor's okay, I have no further questions.
Yeah, they were fine with it.
Great. Mr. Sander and Mr. Rowe, any questions? Okay. Anyone from the public care to comment, either for or against? All right, seeing no comment, can we have a motion on this application?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the request as.
Thank you, Ms. Leeds. Thank you, Mr. Rapoli. In conformity with the testimony and exhibits offered this evening. Let's take a vote then. Mr. Higgins?
In favor?
Ms. Leeds? Mr. Rapoli? Chair votes in favor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next will be the, we're looking at the 105 Valley Road. We're going to 105 Valley first. Okay, yeah, the Kyle Leone? Leone. Is it Leone? Leone. You pronounce the E at the end?
Yeah, we do.
Okay, Mr. Leone. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the application of Kyle Leone for a special exception from section, or pursuant to section 602C1 of the zoning ordinance. He's requesting a 12.5-foot setback for a proposed attached garage where a 15-foot setback is required. Property is located at 105 Valley Road in the B residential zoning district.
Would you swear yourself in?
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Thank you, Mr. Leone. Can you tell us what exactly you're looking to do?
Yeah, so my name is Kyle Leone. I wrote something here. I'm just going to read this a little easier. My wife, Kristen, and I live at 105 Valley Road. We bought our house back in 2018. We've grown to love the neighborhood and specifically our lot and our neighbors. We currently have a daughter with another baby on the way, and my wife and I are looking to build a bigger house on our existing lot as we're running out of space for the growing family. So we're close with the neighbors on both sides of our lot. We have a shared driveway, and they both have young kids that my daughter plays with. I'm seeking a variance for the new house plans for the attached garage, the rear wall to be 2.5 feet over the 15-foot side yard setback. We have a shared driveway, and the garage will be in the rear of the house with a side load garage door. So the plans have the garage setback 2.5. We'll be able to fit all the toys, kids, my lawn equipment, and then as we're pulling in, have enough room to swing both my truck and then my wife's large SUV into the garage as well.
Anything to add, or is that it?
That's it.
Okay. Have questions from the board? Mr. Higgins? No questions. Ms. Leeds?
No questions.
Okay. Mr. Aprilli?
Just a clarification, this is in the back of the house? Correct. Correct, yeah. Yeah,
You have a shared driveway?
yes.
Does the next door have a garage?
Yes, they do in the back as well.
But in the back of the house or? behind
It's, theirs is set back essentially like on where the old garages used to be, like those single garages, kind of like right behind that essentially. Yeah.
the- And this is not going to be in the driveway? It's gonna be-
No, correct, yeah, behind the house, yeah. So the driveway will stay the same, we're keeping the shared driveway, and then you'll pull back in behind the house.
And the neighbor that's affected, any issues?
None with them, no.
Yeah, okay. So that's the neighbor's garage? You have an existing garage now?
Correct, yeah, we're gonna tear that down,
Goes away?
yes.
So you're basically going to demolish the house and
That's the goal, yeah, we're still looking for
Okay.
builders, but
And put up
yes.
the- Okay, I know the property is still intact.
Yes.
You do have your own driveway. As long as is your neighbor, the neighbor that's most affected by the truncation of the property line, would that be 103?
Yes,
To the right as you look at your
Yes.
property? They're okay with?
yes,
with
they're
what
okay.
you're
There is a
proposing?
hedgerow there, so they won't be like, the hedgerow's gonna stay.
Okay.
We'll just clean it up a little bit, but that
Yeah.
will be staying, so they won't be like seeing it.
Okay. It looks pretty straightforward what you're trying to do. I don't have any further questions. Mr. Sanders? you have any?
One point of clarification for the record. When I announced it, I stated that this was an application for a special exception. This is not an application for a special exception. This is an application for a variance from Section 602.C.1 of the ordinance. This is a dimensional setback variance request, not a special exception. My question was, the setback from, the 15-foot setback is from where? The rear yard or the side yard?
The side yard,
The side yard,
Yes.
okay. So the 15 feet is required side yard,
correct.
and the garage is going to the rear of the property, but just over a little bit?
Correct,
So
correct.
it's going 2.5 feet over the setback line?
Correct.
Okay,
It's going to diminish the setback line by 2.5 feet.
right.
Yeah.
Joel, can you help with this? We have aggregate? Impervious surface?
No, aggregate yards. Aggregate.
What is the aggregate of the area?
30?
35.
Oh, 35.
Right, we still have that?
Yeah.
If he goes to the 12 and a half to one side, no, he does not have that.
So he needs two variances, aggregate and.
It's the same section, it's the same exact.
Okay, well, we,
Side yard ordinance is the same section. It's one variance, one variance.
It's just not 15, it's 15 and 35 that we're requesting.
Correct, yeah.
Okay. Just clarifying, that's all.
do we have any idea how many resulting aggregate feet of side yard setback there are?
So on the driveway side, it's 19.9, and then the house is set at 17.3, I think it is, 17.3, and then the garage would be at 12.5.
Right. 32.4. Yeah, that's fine. No, the proper section was advertised, so we're good, but I'm glad we got that. Dom, that was a great question. Okay. And what are the dimensions of the garage itself? If they're in there, I didn't see them, or they were too small.
Yes, they
to
should
read.
be on there, I can pull those.
Attached,
It'll be
yeah.
attached to the house.
Correct. 31 by 26.
Okay. I have no further questions. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Chairman.
Mr. Sander. Mr. Rowe? Okay, great, thank you. Is there anyone here from the public who wants to testify in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, hearing none, we'll take a vote. Mr. Higgins? Wait.
Yeah, wait, we need-
Excuse
yeah,
me,
well, I was
yes,
gonna-
I'm sorry. What am I doing? Yeah, can we have a motion for, on the request?
I'll make a motion to approve the request.
Thank you. Go a second? Thank you. Chair votes in favor. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
For the new baby and the new,
Yeah, thank you.
new residence and garage. Okay. Next one will be application of Strategic Capital LLC for the go ahead,
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the application of Strategic Capital LLC for a variance from Section 1909 point capital E of the zoning ordinance to erect a fence on a corner lot that would encroach into one of the front yards. This property is located at 201 Mill Creek Road in the B residential zoning district.
Okay. And, may I have your name, please?
David Dupel.
Okay, can you be sworn in, please?
David, D-A-V-I-D, Dupel, D-U-P-E-L-L.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about to give this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Preliminarily, Mr. DuPello, what is your position with Strategic Capital LLC?
Sole owner.
Sole owner? Okay, thank you.
Yes, could you tell us a little bit about what you're looking to do?
Sure. So we are requesting to install a 6-foot PVC privacy fence around the backyard and seeking a variance because it is a corner lot. And on the proposed drawings, the setback of the fence from the curb to where the fence is going to be put is 10 foot, and then on the frontage from the curb to the new fence is at 38 feet. This is very similar to the request, I think, a few months back at 101 Hilltop Road. So same material, same company installing it. The homeowners had just requested we install prior to settlement because they have small children, and given that the property's on the corner, they think it's best from a safety perspective to have a fence if the kids are playing in the yard.
Okay, do we have any questions, Mr. Higgins?
No questions.
Ms. Leeds?
So it's going on, it's the Clover Lane side, the issue, right?
No, I think the Mill Creek.
Mill Creek, because the street is right there. I think there's minimum setback given the proximity to stop sign, I think is what.
I know that's the best, yeah, I have a question. Oh, no, yeah, I said, sorry.
Oh, that's all right, that's fine. Mr. Prilly? Thank you, Ms. Leeds. Mr. Prilly?
Just a couple of questions.
Sure.
So the driveway is on Clover Lane,
Correct.
correct? And the fence will not be past the building, front of the building footprint?
Correct.
It will just be on
The corners.
the side of the house, both sides and back, right?
Correct.
And then you have the issue of Mill Creek is a road, so it's a frontage,
Correct.
considered the front yard. You're going to be 10 feet off the curb.
Correct.
The right of way is 7 feet, so you're going to be 3 feet behind the right of way.
Correct.
Okay, one question.
Thank you, Mr. Prilly. The neighbors okay with this?
Yes.
Okay. Just, yeah, so the fence will obviously, I assume, be behind and clear of the stop sign at Clover Lane?
Correct, because the stop sign isn't on that corner, it's on the other side of Mill Creek.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is the fence running on the property line on the opposite side from Mill Creek Road?
We usually stay off about a few inches, just
Okay,
err
and that
on the side of
na-
caution.
that neighbor was okay?
Yeah.
Okay. And then there's the rear, same thing with the rear setback?
Correct.
6 feet high privacy, white PVC privacy fence, you can't see through it? Okay.
Correct.
So that'll completely surround the property from the front of the house along Mill Creek, across the backyard, rear yard's property line, and across the side yard property line.
Correct. And then there on the larger corner, there'll be an 8-foot gate, and then on the other side, there'll be a 4-foot gate, just so you could access the yard if needed.
No,
Correct.
with 8-foot gate and 4-foot wide. No further questions, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sander. Mr. Rowe? Okay, great, thank you. Is there anyone here from the public in favor of this application? Anyone opposed? Seeing none, can we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the request as laid out in conformity with the testimony today.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Aprilli. Do I have a second? Second. Okay, thank you, Mr. Higgins. We can take a vote then, Mr. Higgins?
In favor?
Mr. Aprilli? In favor. And chair votes in favor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
The next application is 23 Church Road. Mr. Sander?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant will correct me. This is Teresa and George Curuk.
That's great.
Was it close, though?
That was actually it.
Curuk, okay, Curuk. For a property located at 23 Church Road in the B Residential Zoning District, the Curuks are requesting a variance from Section 1909E to allow the installation of a privacy fence that would go 7 feet in from the curb on Brighton Road.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sander. Please be sworn in.
And you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you, Mr. Currick. If you could give us some detail on what you're looking to do.
Sure. So we're looking to install a 6-foot white privacy fence that would run along the rear of our property, run along the side of our property about 4 feet, so it wouldn't come all the way up towards the front of the house, and then it would go all the way to 7 feet from Brighton Road. We would have an 8-foot gate in the back corner and 2 4-foot gates on either side in the front of the fence.
Do you have any questions from the board, Mr. Higgins?
No, just a comment. I drove by and it's nice looking house.
Thank you.
New construction,
Yes.
you're going to put a sidewalk on the right?
I don't believe so. I'm not aware that I should have or have to, or, oh, so I just can, but no, we're not doing that.
Township codes, new construction, you put sidewalks in. You got a sidewalk next door to you, and you put a sidewalk in the front, but you didn't connect them.
Correct, the sidewalk ends a little further down the corner once you turn onto Brighton.
So people want to walk down the street to go out, they have to walk on the street.
Or they could walk on the grass, I guess, but, yeah, so there's room.
You're going to be 7
there-
feet off the curb, that's the right of way. So theoretically, if there was a sidewalk there, that would be the edge of the right of way. So can you move it in 10 feet off the right of way?
Sure.
No more questions.
Thank you, Mr. Aprilli. Yeah, I've looked at the property and actually did a measurement. It's about, you have that residual sidewalk, and it's like 10 and a half feet from the edge of the curb to the inner edge of the residual sidewalk. So you're looking, were you looking to fence that in, or leave the fence outside the?
Yeah, so the fence is only coming up
Inside.
4 feet up the house, so it wouldn't even get to the area where, so it's primarily the backyard, and then the fence just comes a little bit forward. There's 2 window wells on the side, and we're just connecting it to the house there. So it doesn't even fence in 90% of the property, or 90% of the home, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're concerned primarily with the stretch of residual sidewalk and grass along Brighton Road. So if you put it 10 and a half feet off that curb, if that would be acceptable.
If that's what we have to do.
Okay. 10 and a half is actually where the edge of that residual sidewalk ends. I know Mr. Aprilli has a concern, and I understand that, about people walking along that stretch. They wouldn't have to go in the street. They could walk on the grass. I suspect that residual sidewalk is there probably because of conformity with the Americans with Disabilities Act or something from the 1990s, because there's a cutout.
Yeah, there's like a
It's only
ramp.
partial, right. So as long as you can put the fence about 10 and a half feet off that curb, that would be good.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Sander, do you want to?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Looking at the plan, it does note a 5-foot setback for the fence. You said 7 feet. And usually, if the board grants relief, they ask you to be in substantial compliance with the plans and testimony that you present to them at the hearing. I want to get it straight on the record that you're proposing 7 feet in, not 5 feet, even though the plan says 5 feet, correct?
So, yeah, I'd asked the engineer who did the plans for 7 feet, so I don't know why he did 5 feet.
Okay.
That would be an error on his part, and I didn't notice that on the plan.
Notwithstanding any of that, you will agree as a condition of approval, if the board approved the application, to erect the fence not less than 10 and a half feet off of the curb of Brighton Road.
Correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, great. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead.
Do you know that the code requires a new walkway when you have new construction? Did anyone know that?
We did a new walkway where there was an existing walkway, and we replaced that, but no one told us that we needed to do a curb down Brighton Road.
It's a code, it's part of the township code.
So, Don, I'll answer that.
It's not
Yeah,
finished, I understand.
correct.
But it's still code. Do you have a waiver? Is there a waiver for that?
Not right now, no. There's no process for that right now either.
People in the adjoining neighborhood, they go to East Plymouth Valley Township Baseball Park and Football Park, and they have to walk in the street, and it's a hazard. So there's an opportunity here to put in a walkway because it's new construction, and that's a requirement of the code. But they're not requiring it. That's why setbacks being asked to go further, because eventually they're going to put a sidewalk there.
Understood.
Do we have any comments from the public?
Yes, please.
Okay, please come on up and be sworn in.
Awkward way to meet my neighbor, but hi. Jamie Oliver. Jamie Oliver.
You're going to have to spell that.
Jaimie Oliver.
I missed the last one.
Oliver. I do. Thank you. Sure. So, hi. Nice to meet you. So, yeah, I don't have a problem with the fence at all. I live at 13 Church. I walk by 23 Church. Beautiful house. Can't wait to have you as a neighbor. My concern was with the original proposition of having a 7-foot setback because of the absence of a sidewalk. For those of us who have animals, who have children, who have strollers, sometimes it's not possible to walk on the grass, and we are forced to walk on the road. So it sounds like there might be an agreement here to have that 10-foot setback. I know we haven't been enforcing the sidewalk, but I'd like to get on record that for safety reasons, for mobility reasons, that many of us in the neighborhood would like to see a sidewalk put in. Sure.
Any further comments?
No, that was it.
Okay, great. No, I understand. That, again, that's expressed concern that Mr. Aprilli had expressed
Yeah.
earlier. But he's from that general neighborhood.
Yeah, it's just tough. We have people who park, there's not a sidewalk on the other side of Brighton there either, so we're
Yeah, right.
forced to walk in the road, regardless of what side of the road we're on in Brighton, so.
Okay.
Yeah,
great.
just wanted that on record. So.
Thank you, Ms. Oliver.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
that. Anyone
Yeah.
else?
I will say that to that point, your best bet is to talk to council.
Okay,
They're the ones that are pushing us not to enforce it right now.
Sure.
As well as they're deliberating on where and how they enforce it.
Yeah.
So that'd be your best bet to get your opinion more noticed.
okay,
Will be a council meeting.
perfect, thank you.
Is that just for the valley?
No, that's for the whole township.
Because in this particular instance, there's a sidewalk that stops, and the sidewalk.
Correct.
goes up.
Yeah.
There's small stuff here.
Right,
When you read the town hall about the valley, it'll take decades because there's no sidewalks in the valley. But in this development, there's sidewalks everywhere. And this is the only property, this property and across the street, where you cannot walk to East Plymouth Valley Park
correct.
without walking in the street.
Right, yeah, no, it's been, no, I agree with you. I understand where you guys are coming from for sure.
Okay,
Just
so
on
take
the,
it to council?
yeah.
Sure, okay,
We've been waiting for their direction on it
got it.
from a code enforcement standpoint.
It's not you. It's not the fence, it's not anything. We just want the sidewalk in the area.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Oliver. Do we have any?
Thank
other-
you so much.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comment? Okay, hearing none, can we have a motion on this application?
I make a motion to approve the application.
Before we vote on that, does the maker of the motion and the seconder want to condition it on the fence being set back at least 10 and a half feet from the curb of Brighton Road?
Okay, great. Thank you. Can we have a vote then? Mr. Higgins?
In favor?
Ms. Leeds? In favor. Mr. Aprilli? Opposed. Okay, the chair votes in favor. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the next application will be at 3043 Walton Road.
I'm sorry, it's not, okay.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry, excuse me. Yes, we should do, we had agreed we would do Church Road, because I know you're the attorney of record.
Oh, yeah, this was, we decided to do them, because this is continued, so when we took the attorney-represented parties, we decided to take the continued one first and then do the new one. So we'll do Ridge Pike Car Connection.
School Lane.
435 School Lane,
35
yep.
School. I apologize for my misstep.
That's all right, no, I just wanted to get it straight.
Sure.
I'm just going to place this here. I'm going to hand these out to the board as well, but I always bring the larger exhibit in case we need it.
While we're doing that, this is the application of, hold please,
Raceway.
the right file.
Ridge Pike Road.
Ridge Pike Car Connection LLC, doing business as Raceway Kia. This is an application for a variance from Section 1400 of the zoning ordinance to permit exterior storage of inventory for an automobile dealership. The property is located at 435 School Lane in the Limited Industrial Zoning District.
Thank you.
This hearing was originally advertised for a hearing on April 21st. At that meeting, we had received a request for continuance from counsel, Mr. Lewis, to the applicant, requesting that it be continued to the May 19th zoning hearing board hearing. Then we received additional correspondence dated April 30th, 2025 from counsel requesting that it be continued to this evening's hearing. So we have not opened this hearing yet, and we will do so now.
Thank you, Mr. Sander.
Is there anybody here who has an interest in this case who wishes to become a party to this case? Anyone in favor or opposition who wants to become a party? Okay, seeing none, we'll proceed.
Okay, thank you. Be sworn in, gentlemen, please.
Mr. Tangier.
Corey Tangier, C-O-R-Y, last name Tangier, T-A-N-G-I-R.
Shall I proceed, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So good evening, Rob Lewis from Kaplan Stewart, representing Ridge Pike Car Connection, which, as you heard, operates as Raceway Kia. As is my practice, I've handed to the board a packet of pre-marked exhibits. If the board will permit me, I'd like to identify those for the record, and in doing so, try and provide some background and a summary of the application before calling Mr. Tangier briefly for some testimony. Going through the exhibits, first is applicant's Exhibit A1, a copy of the deed to the property, the subject of this application, 435 School Lane. As you'll note, the deed vests legal title in MC Plymouth Meeting Funding Company, LLC. Applicant's Exhibit A2 is a copy of a license between the entity that operates the property and my client, Ridge Pike Car Connection. Exhibit A3 is a copy of the application filed with the township that brings us here this evening. Because my client is a licensee, that application was in fact signed by the legal owner of the property, authorizing my client as the licensee to seek the relief that's here this evening. Mr. Sander, in lieu of a specific authorization, I simply asked the owner to have him sign the application so that we knew we had owner's authorization to seek the relief this evening.
I see the licensor has signed the license agreement. Okay. As long as the owner is giving consent?
Yes, and in fact, owner's representatives were able to make they're out of town. They are not local. We were able to have their representatives here at the Planning Commission meeting to represent it there as well. But I do believe that we have covered our legal basis for standing.
Agree.
This is it, signatory Robert Van Echo, is that the one that's on there?
If you can read it, you can read it better than I can.
Yeah, I think
Yes.
Yeah.
it's Robert Vaneco, V-A-N-E-C-K-O,
Okay.
is the licensor who signed the,
And they are based out of Chicago.
Right.
Exhibit A4, which is also on the board in front of me, is an aerial photograph of the property, 435 School Lane. And then Exhibit A5, which is in your packet, I do have a copy of it if we need it, is a survey plan of the existing conditions of the property. And I'll stop there for a minute if I can. So my clients, as we set forth in the application, operate a retail automobile dealership along Ridge Pike under the name Raceway Kia. That dealership has been dramatically affected by the ongoing widening of Ridge Pike. In fact, the widening has caused them to lose upwards of 50 spaces on their property for the storage of inventory. Pretty significant impact to them. This has limited their ability, short and long term, to store inventory required to operate their business. Something that unfortunately I'm seeing more and more. I represent a number of automobile dealers in Montgomery County, and storage of inventory is becoming a bigger and bigger issue for them. My client has entered into the license agreement that you see with the owners of the subject property simply to permit up to 70 inventory vehicles to be stored in an unused portion of the parking lot of this existing office building. 435 School Lane itself is located in the LI Limited Industrial Zoning District. The property itself is about 10.7 acres and is improved with a slightly larger than 168,000 square foot two-story office building. That office building is currently substantially vacant. About 50% of that office building is vacant. The remaining 50% of the building is leased to Optinova, which is a medical tubing manufacturing business. But again, about 50% of that office building is currently vacant. My client is proposing to locate up to 70 inventory vehicles within the unused portion of the parking lot. The vehicles will be separated from the remainder of the parking lot with fencing. A permit for that fencing has already been obtained. That's simply to keep the cars secure in that location. The vehicles will only be accessed by Kia employees, no customers, and no test drives. None of that type of activity would occur on site. As you'll hear from Mr. Tangier, if a vehicle needs to be brought back to the dealership, a Kia employee will take another Kia employee there, retrieve the vehicle, and bring it back to their location on Ridge Pike. So there will be no customer activity here. All inventory for the dealership is still delivered to the dealership. It must be checked in. It must be officially received and inspected at the dealership. So you will not have car carriers dropping off vehicles in this location. All vehicles will be done one vehicle at a time. There are no other improvements proposed for the property. No additional lighting is required for this use, and no additional impervious coverage. All operate within existing vacant portions of the parking lot. As I mentioned, I have Mr. Tangier, and if the board doesn't have any initial questions for me, I'd like to ask him a few questions for the record. Great. Mr. Tangier, just for the record, can you state your name and your business address, please?
My name's Corey Tangier. The business address 1402 West Ridge Pike, Conshohocken, PA.
And with whom are you currently employed, and in what position?
I'm with Raceway Kia, DBA Ridge Pike Car Connection, LLC, and I'm the general manager.
How long have you been employed with Raceway Kia?
With the group, I've been with the group 16 years.
And over those 16 years, I assume that means you are familiar with the day-to-day operations with Raceway Kia?
Without a doubt.
All right. And are you familiar also with the property that's subject to this application, 435 School Lane?
Yes, I am.
And you and I have discussed this application, so you're familiar with the application itself?
Yes, I am.
All right. Corey, were you present for my introduction to the board this evening?
Yes.
All right. And during that introduction, I made various representations of fact to the board about your operations and the property located at 435 School Lane. If I were to call you to testify to each of those facts, would you testify to them as I presented them this evening?
Yes.
No corrections or additions?
No corrections or additions.
Okay. So let's expand a little bit on that. How long has Raceway Kia been operating in its current location?
We purchased the dealership April 29th, 2022.
And any idea at your max capacity about what your capacity was for inventory at Ridge Pike?
Probably about 300, 350 cars. That includes service.
And I know I said it in my own words, but if you can describe generally how the Ridge Pike widening has affected your operations there?
Sure. Yeah, it's dramatically affected our operation from, in this instance, from an inventory perspective, losing 50 spaces, and it's actually, it's our most valuable real estate, truthfully, because it's how we market and advertise at no additional cost. Our inventory that sits out there on Ridge Pike, it's now, we lost some of that setback. I think it was 4 feet, and because there's so much construction, we're right on the corner where that bridge is happening. We've had to fully remove vehicles from those spaces completely in hopes that there's no damage done to the vehicles, which we've experienced some since that's happened. So,
and those improvements then have significantly reduced your ability to maintain inventory on your primary lot.
Yes, they have.
And can you describe a little bit to the board why maintaining a particular level of inventory is key to your success?
Sure. I mean, on multiple levels.
Mm-hmm.
But truly, our business is reliant on these vehicles being sold, and that starts the process for just about every other employee in the dealership, from service to parts, from the administrative side, the financing team. I mean, it all starts when a vehicle is sold. That's it's crucial to our operation. And then, in addition, in order to keep our inventory turning properly, the factory assigns us certain allocations each month, and that's based on the turn of our inventory, how much inventory we can hold and then sell in a period of time allows us to earn additional allocations to the dealership. So being able to maintain a certain level of inventory is very, very important.
So if you're incapable of storing a particular amount of inventory, not only do you potentially lose sales to customers, but you can lose priority in terms of receiving new inventory.
That is correct.
Okay. And so am I correct that in response to the challenges you're facing at 1402 Ridge, you sought out locations to temporarily store that inventory that you've lost at your primary location?
That is correct.
And that's how you came across 435 School Lane?
That is correct.
Okay. And am I also correct that part of the attractive features of 435 School Lane, proximity to your existing site, and the ability to securely store that inventory, as well as the availability of a vacant parking lot?
That is correct.
And so you do not anticipate the need to add any impervious surface or in any way otherwise alter the property?
No.
Okay. And am I correct that you've reached an agreement to store up to a maximum of 70 vehicles in this location?
Yes.
Will any vehicles be delivered to this location from the manufacturer?
No.
And so all vehicles will be taken to 435 School Lane by employees of Raceway Kia individually?
That is correct.
And will customers ever be permitted to visit 435 School Lane?
No.
So if there's a particular vehicle that a customer wants to see or to test drive that's located in your inventory at 435 School Lane, it will have to be brought to the dealership for the customer to view or test drive that vehicle?
That is correct.
And no test drives will emanate from 435 School Lane?
No, they will not.
Does that also mean that your use of 435 School Lane will be primarily limited to or coincide with your operating hours at Ridge Pike?
That is correct.
So this is not an all-hours operation?
No, it's not.
Okay. Will you be storing any vehicles awaiting repair at 435 School Lane?
No.
So this will not be used for any damaged vehicles or for storage of parts or anything of that nature?
No.
And will the inventory at 435 School Lane be secured?
Yes.
And that's done through using fencing that has already been permitted by the township?
Yes.
So your intention really is simply to park passenger vehicles in what was already designated as a parking lot, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So other than the need to keep those vehicles secure through the use of a fence, the use and operations within that parking lot will be the same really as any other person coming and going from a parking lot?
Yes.
Do you know approximately how many times per day you think you may need to access this inventory?
4 to 5.
Per day?
I believe there's times we've never accessed the property.
Okay. And so if the office building were full and these parking spaces were being used by employees of an office building, 70 spaces probably would result in 140 cars coming in per day just for those 70 parking spaces. But you're anticipating only 4 to 5 trips per day?
Yes.
Okay. So any reason to believe that your use would have any greater impact on traffic or noise than would be expected if it was simply being used as a parking lot for employees?
No.
And I think I stated this earlier, but just to be sure, you're not adding any lighting to this facility?
No.
Any reason to believe that your proposed use would be inconsistent with the intended use of a parking lot?
No.
No activity there, no repairs in that parking lot?
No.
Okay. Any reason to believe that your use would otherwise be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare?
No.
Okay. And is it also fair to say that absent the ability to acquire additional storage for your inventory, that your operations would be significantly impacted?
Yes.
That's all I have for Mr. Tangier.
Do we have any questions from the board?
One question. Is this permanent or temporary until the bridges, Ridge Pike is all?
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's
Yeah.
all you.
We are seeking permanent storage.
And Mr. Higgins, that question was asked at the Planning Commission as well. The agreement right now is a license, which allows the owner of the property then obviously to terminate that license at will. I think they're 1-year terms. So if the owner of that property were ever able to release the 50% of the building that is currently vacant, they would obviously need to terminate that license because the parking would be necessary for occupancy of that building. So until that time, the goal is to keep the vehicles in this location. But again, the primary business of the owner of the property is leasing their office space or their lab space. So at that time, they would be required then to terminate the license. But as of right now, they don't have a whole lot of prospects for that building, so they were happy to be able to utilize their parking.
Mr. Chairman, a couple of questions. This is right across the street from bus terminal,
It is.
and the parking will be on, when we look at this diagram, the pattern.
Correct.
Not going to expand,
Correct.
right? And this is basically buffered from the residential neighborhood.
It is. There's substantial existing vegetation. And Mr. Aprilia, actually, that's a good point I'd like to raise just to put it on the record. I know that there had been a complaint from a nearby resident about overnight idling of trucks in this parking lot. And I did have a conversation with the owner of the property to find out what that was. No offense, Corey, I wanted to make sure it wasn't Corey's operation that somebody was putting a car carrier there. It was determined that those vehicles, those trucks that were idling overnight, actually belonged to Optinova. And that issue has been remedied, and Optinova has been made aware that they are not permitted to have trucks idling in that parking lot. But it was not a Raceway Kia issue. It was actually an Optinova issue. That's the only complaint that we know of in terms of operations at that property.
Okay, these are all going to be cars for sale, so they go in and go out.
Correct.
You know what kind of turnover you want to have? I believe, say, 4 trips a day.
They are storage of brand new vehicles, and I believe right now we're leased for up to 70, and I believe right now we have 20 vehicles there. We are experiencing a shortage of inventory once again. So the turnover at most is 4 to 5 times a day, only because
70 vehicles all fit in that spot? Is that where they're all going?
the back, the back side of that.
Yes.
Yep. Mm-hmm. It's roughly 30 to 35 on each side. But Mr. Aprilli, we've never actually filled the lot yet. I think at most we've had about 50 vehicles there.
And Mr. Lewis may mention that if the property is leased, there'd be a lot more traffic. If that traffic leaves at night, right, a lot would be in, this is going to be full, correct?
Correct. The vehicles would certainly stay overnight.
They stay overnight. This is a storage center, right?
Correct.
Unless you have it out in the front lot. And you really have a mile from Bridgeway here?
Yes.
No questions. Thank you.
So yeah, I guess so the really won't, you don't anticipate any significant traffic impact on School Lane from taking test drives and things like that?
No test drives would be in this location at all.
Oh, okay.
Correct. All the test drives would have to emanate still from their dealership.
From Ridge Pike.
Customers will never come over to School Lane. So if, say you wanted a particular vehicle and they only had a black one on site, but they had a red one in inventory over at School Lane, the red one would be brought to Ridge Pike, and then the customer could inspect it, take a look at it, and test drive it. But the customer would never actually go over to School Lane. Only employees may access that lot.
My next question, I think, is sort of a similar one to Mr. Higgins. I noticed that Exhibit B in the packet you submitted initially says that the license for the property expires 12/31/25. I presume it would be renewable, but is that intended to anticipating expiration due to the cessation of construction on Ridge Pike?
And as representing a number of landlords in similar situations, a license is a much easier agreement to handle termination of than a lease. A lease, you're a tenant, you have tenant rights. Under a license, when that term comes up, you can kick them out much easier. And so from a landlord's perspective, a license is a much more readily enforceable agreement when you know that the term is undetermined. So you may do, say, 1 year at a time, automatic renews for a year, but you only have to provide, usually under a license agreement, 30 or 60 days notice that the license is going to terminate. So that's usually a landlord's decision to do a license rather than a lease, just because it's easier to terminate should they get a new tenant.
And are any residential neighbors still having concerns?
The only concern that we had heard was the one about the idling trucks, which we investigated to make sure that it wasn't an issue for this user, that it was an existing tenant.
I just wanted to go back to Mr. Higgins' question. What happens if the owner of the property leases 80% or 100% of the office building there and the license is terminated? You said you wanted it to be permanent, but it might certainly not be. What are the plans for Raceway Kia?
It's a good question, Mr. Sander. Took me some time to even find school lane availability. We don't have a plan just yet. In addition to the Ridge Pike project, we're also doing a service renovation out in the back of our property. So, I mean, and we have an area that's currently enclosed by fences for construction debris. So, I mean, we are in a very tough spot. So we're hoping that this gets renewed. But if not, we'll have to seek out other opportunities.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know
Thank
a couple of relatively empty spots in the township, but
You know all those spots. Yeah, that's all I had, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Yeah.
And Mr. Sander, not to belabor that point, but I do think it's important that, say, a new tenant comes on that only needs 10% of the building or 20% of the building. I assume that during that building permit process, Joel would then evaluate to make sure that if 70 spaces are occupied by Raceway Kia, the remaining parking is sufficient still under the code to have parking for all of those employees. So we understand that that could be an ongoing process. Obviously, if one very large tenant comes in, Corey and I are going to have another conversation and try and find him another location.
Do we have anyone from the public here wanting to comment, either for or against? Hearing no comment, do we have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the application.
Have a roll call vote?
In favor?
Chair votes in favor. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
That's cool. Appreciate it much.
And
Great. Gotcha.
okay, next is the I'm sorry. Yeah.
Gosh, this application looks a lot like the last one. In form and substance, I'm telling you.
Okay, the next is application
Consistency is
for
clutch.
3043 Walton Road.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the application of Star 30 LLC and Star 30 MD LLC. They are seeking a special exception from Section 2500B5 of the zoning ordinance to retrofit an existing building to lease to various tenants as flex space, which may include, but is not limited to, contractors' offices and storage, office space, and other similar uses. This property is located at 3043 Walton Road in the A residential and campus industrial zoning districts. And Mr. Lewis is here again.
I'm back. Start with saying very different posture here. Obviously, I know this board is savvy enough and experienced enough to know the difference between a special exception and a variance. But that being said, I'd like to go through kind of my normal presentation. I do represent the owner of the property, Star 30 LLC, and Star 30 MD LLC. The property 3043 Walton Road. With me this evening to my right is Brett Fox. He's our broker for the property, who I will call for some brief testimony. I have again handed out to the board some exhibit packages. I'd love to go through this similar process I did with the last application and identify those for the record. Exhibit A1 being a copy of the deed, which does vest title in my client, Star 30 LLC and Star 30 MD LLC. Next exhibit is applicant's Exhibit A2, which is an aerial image of the property, which I have also placed on the board in front of me. Exhibit A3 is an existing conditions survey of the property prepared by Eustace Engineering. And as I did with the last application, I'll pause there. I'm sure that the board is pretty familiar with this location. I believe it's pretty close to Mr. Higgins' residence as well. I think you're over in that portion of the municipality.
Close to mine also.
And Mr. Daly, there we go. I always used to refer to it as Karen Weiss's neighborhood because I know Karen lived over there.
Yeah.
And I was always cautious anytime I had a project in that location. But anyway, she's still there. I know.
Yeah, I'm actually closer to her than Marty is.
Are you?
She's right around the
Okay.
corner from me, yeah.
So the property is obviously located directly along Walton Road near the Five Points intersection. The property being just shy of 10 acres, it's improved with a very large, almost 98,000 square foot office building, most of which is one story, a small portion of which actually has a second story. The one story portion of the building has a very attractive feature in that it has ceiling heights of 15 feet. This was the Health Advocate building for many, many, many years. The property is mostly located in the campus industrial zoning district, but as with, I think, all of the properties that front along Walton Road, the very front of that property is actually zoned A residential. As a number of years ago, a variance was granted, I think, to either Health Advocate or its predecessor, it might have even been their predecessor, to improve that A residential portion with a parking lot to serve the commercial building in the rear. The parking lot for this property is very large. It was at that time necessary to serve what at one point was nearly 400 employees of Health Advocate working from this facility. The property itself takes direct access from Walton Road. There is only one point of ingress and egress. It is full movement, which I'm sure when Health Advocate was finishing up was quite a challenge coming in and out of that property. But it was their only access, and they did permit full access movement at that location. There appears from aerial views to be an informal access that actually connected through one of the other commercial properties out to Township Line Road. When our client was originally looking at the property, that was somewhat attractive to have another egress. Unfortunately, our title does not reflect any rights to that access, and I believe that access is now what is becoming a charter school, so we don't believe that access is something that we would like to formalize because it wouldn't be appropriate really to have commercial traffic going through that property. So if you're familiar with that egress over there, unfortunately, we don't believe we can take advantage of that. The property is now fully vacant. It was anticipated for some period of time that it was going to become vacant, that the lease was going to expire. My client purchased the property with the intent to revitalize and repurpose that existing building. After quite some time poring over market analysis and trying to understand the adaptability of the building itself, as you heard this evening, my clients would like to pursue a flex space concept. There appears to be very substantial demand in the marketplace. The location is obviously excellent, and the building itself is well suited for conversion to that use. As I mentioned, the property is in the campus industrial zoning district. It's kind of a peculiar zoning district if you haven't delved into the zoning code that much. The district itself permits all of the uses in the office and lab district, which are, as that name gives away, office space, laboratory space, allows things like educational uses and hospitals and banks. The campus industrial district then adds to those uses by allowing manufacturing and fabricating in the district. So we actually had several meetings with staff over time about this property and about potential reuse of this property, a number of different concepts that went through. And then when taken as a whole, we felt that the best repurposing of this building, given the market, given the building itself, was to seek flex use. There's been a lot of demand for various flex users. There may be some other users in the future. There has been some significant interest in various recreational type uses as well, but those uses would require a use variance. So until we have specific tenants for those uses, we are not coming before the zoning hearing board. Unlike those uses, because the ordinance does permit all of the components of what would be normally a flex use from a marketing standpoint, we have put an application before the board this evening seeking the necessary special exception approval to allow for flex use. Really a mix of office space, indoor storage, possibly some light assembly and manufacturing. And I'm always cautious anytime I'm in front of a zoning hearing board or a local elected officials seeking a special exception or a conditional use without a specific tenant identified. I prefer to sit here and talk to you specifically about that tenant and maybe their operations or what have you. But case law does provide that it is an appropriate pathway to seek simply the special exception so that you can market the property and then utilize the building permit process to ensure that each and every one of those tenants and what their specific operations are fit within the permitted uses and the permitted special exception. We discussed that with staff during our reviews, and staff, including the solicitor, agreed that that was an appropriate pathway here. In large part because of the challenges we face, oftentimes many of these tenants being smaller occupancies will reach out to Brett saying, do you have space available? And if we tell them that they're going to have to go through a special exception process, oftentimes that scares them. They don't know the zoning process. The timelines scare them, and it becomes a deal killer. They try and find somewhere else to go. So I know the board is familiar with the difference between a special exception and a variance. I won't go through my entire speech on special exceptions and bore you even further this evening. But what we have also put together for you is Applicant's Exhibit A4, and that's a copy of the current concept for the fit-out plan. Again, this is still somewhat conceptual. We have not filed for building permits yet, but what you see on Applicant's Exhibit A4, that what the owner is anticipating that the market will seek, which is to divide that internal space into various suites of various sizes. And it's very adaptable. If somebody comes in and wants 2,000 square feet for their particular use, we can accommodate that. If somebody comes in wanting 20,000 square feet, we can accommodate that as well. The way the building is set up currently, there's evidence of former loading facilities. They are not there today. But structurally, the way the building is set up, we can very easily accommodate overhead doors. So if you have a user that has box truck deliveries that they want to bring right into their suite, we'd have the ability to accommodate that. The users that we are anticipating, we are not anticipating tractor-trailer vehicles. These are smaller users. It can be something similar to, say, a Horizon Services, but not on a scale, obviously, of that size. But plumbing contractors, electrical contractors that need space to store some of their materials, has to be stored inside because of the types of materials. They may have their own box trucks or vans that they use, but also usually want some sort of office space along with that. So those are the kinds of tenants that we're expecting and that Brett will tell you a little bit about, where they need that combination of storage, office, maybe even some assembly. Maybe they get a couple of different parts, they put it together, and then they take it to a work site. So we feel that the market is underserved here. There's a lot of demand for that, and that the building is very adaptable to that type of use. In addition to the physical building itself, obviously having a very large parking lot to serve that use is very attractive. Again, we don't anticipate tractor-trailer type vehicles. We don't anticipate providing loading facilities for tractor-trailers, but box vans, work vans, things of that nature can certainly be accommodated in this parking lot without a problem. At the Planning Commission, I don't know if a written recommendation was issued by the Planning Commission or not. The Planning Commission did vote in favor of this application and recommended approval of the application. One recommendation, however, had to do with a concern about fleet vehicles. While I understand the concern that you don't want large numbers of vehicles parked there overnight, I would suggest that, in my opinion, that's not an appropriate condition on a special exception. It is permitted in this location. There's nothing that would preclude the use of those types of vehicles. The concern expressed at the Planning Commission had to do with, if kids in the neighborhood start finding out that there's vehicles overnight, it could entice the children to start, investigating, maybe stealing or vandalizing those vehicles. It's obviously really a problem anywhere you're going to park those kinds of vehicles. This parking lot is well shielded. It's not an attractive nuisance to anybody other than people in the community if, teenagers do what teenagers do. But we certainly don't believe that there's any reason to believe that it's any different than if an office operator were operating 24/7, which they're permitted to do, 2 or 3 shifts. As of right now, we have not had interest yet from somebody that would have fleet vehicles, but we certainly think that it would fit within the permitted uses and still would be appropriate. So I just wanted to address that concern from the Planning Commission. The ordinance itself, as you know, special exception is a permitted use. You're simply, as an applicant, required to demonstrate compliance with any of the objective criteria set forth in the ordinance. This specific special exception use only has one objective criteria, and that is a prohibition on outdoor storage of materials and equipment. And the owner is willing to accept that as a condition of approval. There is no proposal here to allow outdoor storage of materials and equipment. Passenger vehicles, box vans, things like that are normal in a parking lot, yes, but no materials or equipment. So we would accept that as a condition of approval. Absent that, there are no other objective criteria in the ordinance. So we do think it is a pretty straightforward special exception application. With that, I do have Mr. Fox and would like to ask him a few questions for the record.
Sure, could you swear him in?
Sure. Brett Fox.
I did. E-R-E-T-T?
Yes.
F-O-X?
Yep.
You got it.
Now that your name is on the record, with whom are you currently employed, Mr. Fox?
MS Fox Real Estate Group.
And in what capacity?
I am a sales and leasing agent for commercial real estate properties.
And how long have you been involved in commercial real estate?
I've been licensed in Pennsylvania for about 13 years.
And you're familiar with the property at 3043 Walton Road?
I am, yes.
And you're familiar with the exhibits that I've presented this evening?
Yes.
About how long have you been involved with this property itself?
Give or take 9 months or so.
And during that time, you've been working closely with the owner to develop a plan for renovation and repurposing of the existing building?
I have.
And you've been actively marketing the property as well?
Yes.
Mr. Fox, you heard me make a pretty long-winded opening. Rather than me asking you individualized questions for each of those facts, would you represent to the board that if you were called to testify this evening, you would testify to those facts as I've presented them to the board this evening?
Yes.
Any additions, corrections?
No.
Okay. Based on your experience and expertise in commercial real estate, would you say that this property and specifically this building are well suited for use and occupancy as flex space?
I would, yes.
And would you also agree that flex space encompasses a range of users involving office space, lab space, light manufacturing or assembly, and indoor storage of materials and equipment?
Yes.
And what, in your experience, would differentiate flex space from traditional office space?
Sure. So flex is essentially a mix between traditional office and warehouse storage. So flex buildings will be primarily single-story, ground level. They will likely have higher ceiling heights than office space and access to loading through docks or overhead drive-in doors.
Okay. And Mr. Fox, have you had interest in the time you've been marketing this property for tenants that would fit that description?
We have, yes.
And would it be fair to say that based on what you have gone through with the owner in terms of developing a layout, that you feel that this building would be suitable to what's the word I'm looking for? Sorry, to allocate space within that building for a range of tenants from 2,000 square feet to 20 or 30,000 square feet, depending on the needs of that particular tenant?
Yes, we have a lot of flexibility.
And that's due to the unique configuration of the building itself and just kind of the structural integrity of that building?
Correct.
Would you also agree that these types of users do not generally require tractor-trailer deliveries, but rather most of the materials or equipment is handled in smaller box trucks or work vans?
Yes, for the tenants, we'll be able to accommodate.
And the building itself and the parking facilities are well-suited for accommodating those types of uses?
Yes.
And is the owner agreeable that outdoor storage of materials will not be permitted, so all storage of materials will occur within the building?
They are.
Okay. Based on your knowledge of these types of users, do you have any reason to believe that the proposed use would have a detrimental impact on the public health, safety, or welfare?
No.
Any reason to believe that these types of users would negatively impact the appropriate use or enjoyment of adjacent properties?
No.
Okay. That's all I have for Mr. Fox.
Any questions from the board? Yeah. Do you know how long this building's been vacant?
So technically, it's been under lease by Health Advocate through the end of May of this year. They, at one point, had over 400 employees in the building. I believe since COVID, they've transitioned to more of a remote hybrid model. So the building has theoretically been occupied by a handful of people. I mean, you know, in the last 9 months, I may see 5, 6 people in the building when touring it.
So what's the likelihood that you can rent this building as an office?
Unlikely. We may be able to get office may be able to fill some of the building, but to fill almost 92,000 square feet with traditional office is pretty unlikely. There's almost 6 million square feet in the Bluebell Plymouth Meeting submarket, and there's a glutton of office space right now, so it's pretty competitive and hasn't been a great market.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a few questions. Flex space is office warehouse generally, at least in my experience. Do all these bays have garage doors?
There is the ability to do so. We are not proposing to do that immediately. They do not have them today. What we wanted to do is put a fit-out plan into the record so that you could see how it could potentially lay out. If you ended up having 5 or 6 individual contractors that wanted their own roll-up doors, the building, the way it is structurally, would allow us to put roll-up doors pretty frequently with a man door next to them, and that's kind of how it's shown. But in all likelihood, you're going to have some users that want the roll-up doors, some users that don't. And it will also depend in large part on how much square footage any one tenant is looking for. If you have a 20,000 square foot tenant, they may only want one roll-up door. We're simply trying to show in this plan how it could potentially lay out. They are not as of yet. Correct.
Correct. It was a single occupant building, so there are no subdivisions.
And I'm just curious, like when I hear laboratory for scientific research, commercial and industrial laboratories, any examples? Like, who could be in here? What kind of user could be in here for that?
I'll let Mr. Fox speak to his experience, but I'll also share mine. As you all know, my office is around the corner from this property, just into the Whit Payton side. And their zoning district just up Union Meeting is actually very, very similar, lab and light assembly. And I've been working on a few buildings there for years and have not been able to obtain any tenants. Their zoning classification is much stricter in that location, and it's been impossible to find tenants. I went to the Whit Payne Township Zoning Hearing Board simply to seek relief because they limit the amount of indoor storage. We got that relief and were able to increase the percentage of storage, and we still could not obtain a tenant. We were lucky with one of those buildings. It's 35,000 square feet. We just obtained a single tenant, but we need relief for that tenant, and we just filed that application with Payne. And it is not a manufacturing or fabrication or tech type user. There, we're lucky. It was filed today. It's public knowledge, so I can share it. But the Montgomery County SPCA has just purchased that building and is going to relocate their headquarters there. Yes. But it's the same type of market, and that's the challenges that have been faced. That owner was very lucky that their building specifically suited the needs of the SPCA in terms of the size. But that type of user has been very hard to come by, not to mention, obviously, the office tenants being nearly impossible. My office park, which is right next door to that building, is almost empty. The former Aetna buildings, most of them are empty. This building, luckily, with the additional height, the 15 feet of height, is much more attractive to this type of flex user. So it does appear to be something based on Mr. Fox's analysis that we could have a lot of success with. One of the examples I did share with the Planning Commission, it's a little larger scale, but you go right down the road, and Pierce Phelps went in there 10 or 12 years ago, and a Pierce Phelps type of user where they do install and AC type of components. There is some light assembly that goes along with that. They have more of a warehouse style building, even though it looks like office on the outside. They do some of that components where they put them together and then take them to the job site. Smaller users of that nature are what we're hoping to attract here for this type of space. But it could also simply be, when you leave and head off of Belvoir Road, head through some of these communities, there are a lot of single contractors that are clearly working out of their homes with very large vans in their driveways. We're hopeful that a number of those people, when they can find a 2,000 square foot suite, they don't have to rent a huge space. Maybe they then can pull those vehicles out of the residential community because they'll now have access to reasonable space that will suit their needs. You see a lot of that in Plymouth Township. There are a lot of hardworking contractors here that will now be able to give them an opportunity, hopefully, to find space like that, which I don't think there really is a lot of in the marketplace right now.
Okay, so.
I hope so.
Is that an industrial laboratory that you just mentioned? Is that an example of an industrial laboratory?
I don't know of many industrial lab type users around here.
Okay, but it's only in here, that's what I'm asking.
But they're permitted. Yeah, they're permitted.
It's possible.
Yes.
Is there any examples? Do you have any?
So we had one biotech related company that looked at the building for a couple thousand square feet. And they were a lab they tested medical devices.
So do you have hazardous material requirements?
Those would all be subject to building code requirements. We would have to go through the buildings department, and if there are going to be any hazardous materials stored, they would have to comply with all codes, applicable codes for that type of material usage or storage.
So this, all your bullet print on page 4, permitted, noxious, offensive reason, odors, dust, it's not limited to that. Hazardous material, you get a box that says hazardous material, when you see the truck with hazardous material.
Sure. We are not anticipating those types of users here. This is more pipe, electrical contractors, plumbing contractors, those types of users. Correct.
Yep.
So if there is anything on hazardous materials, you have to get a fire approval from the township.
That's correct.
Yeah, just for the record, Mr. Rowe did share with us a letter from the planning agency secretary that the agency had recommended approval.
Great.
So we did receive that. Just had a couple questions. We were talking about ingress and egress. Would it be from just that one driveway into and out of Walton Road?
It will be, and it's obviously a challenge in that location. When the owner and Mr. Fox and I sat down and talked about this location, and when we talked about it with staff, we talked about that as well. We obviously can't get a signal there. It's too close to the 5 Points intersection, and we don't intend to limit movements. When we were looking at other users for other uses for this location, talking about other potential redevelopment opportunities, that was a big fear. If you were looking at multifamily or something like that, that traffic onto Walton Road would be a significant challenge. One of the benefits we think of this type of user is this type of user tends to be a little bit off-peak. They tend to come in a little bit earlier in the morning. If you have contractors in your family, if you do contracting work, they do tend to start a little earlier in the morning and end a little earlier in the afternoon. So hopefully that won't be as large of a conflict as if you had a 400-employee office building there where everybody's trying to come in and come out right during the stretches in the morning and the stretches in the afternoon where you simply can't make left turns in or left turns out of this driveway. So we're hopeful that this type of user will also be complementary to the extent it can be with those traffic challenges. Because those traffic challenges, unfortunately, aren't going away.
Everybody in that neighborhood has challenges getting onto and out of Walton Road.
Absolutely.
So I understand. It wouldn't necessarily be unique. Are there any residential neighbors who have any concerns or issues? I know there seem to be some residential properties, behind it.
Yeah, obviously, most of our residential neighbors are across Walton Road in that community. There are still 3 or 4 or 5 on our side of Walton Road that I believe start after you go past Apollo.
Yeah.
So we don't believe that there's going to be any impact there. You've got a number of commercial businesses between us and Apollo Road before you get to those residential neighbors. And again, when you take an office building of this size, that if you could occupy it, an office, you would be talking about 400 vehicles a day. We certainly don't anticipate anything near that in terms of the number of vehicles coming and going here. We can't tell you exactly how many, but it would certainly be less detrimental to traffic and to neighbors, I think, than having 400 employees in this location.
And would some potential tenants be likely to have space on several floors? In other words, they could have like an office on the second floor and storage on the ground floor?
So it's primarily first floor space, the entire building. There's 9,000 square feet on the second floor. That will remain as, we're hoping to rent that as office space, just traditional space. That's the only second floor. Everything else is ground.
So those tenants would be different from the ones on the first floor, most likely.
Most likely, it's possible they would have some auxiliary use for first floor space, but probably just a regular office tenant.
And just one more question. I noticed page 2 of the addendum that you submitted Mr. Lewis said that the mentioned storing materials and equipment that may also be used for other light industrial uses. Does that mean that the applicant proposes that manufacturing on the site or just storage of equipment primarily?
Yeah, light manufacturing and assembly is permitted. But you're not going to have any heavy machinery in there doing stamping or anything of that nature. But if there are, somebody may very well be putting together components that go into larger machinery, and they would need to store that. That may be a user. An example that I can give from some of those other buildings in the neighborhood, even though they're in Whitpain, we actually had a solar panel manufacturer that was looking at a building. They didn't actually manufacture the entire solar panel. They manufactured a component to it, and they would assemble their piece of it inside and then take it to whoever is actually manufacturing the entire solar panel. So that's the type of assembly that you would likely see in a space of this nature.
We had a variance request for some of that. A few months ago, I think they did some sort of finishing, some sort of product, remember? Yeah. Yes, right, exactly. Would it be likely that the tenant could be someone like a wood, like someone who did custom woodworking or something, and might have equipment in there where they would do the work?
There's been some interest even in like artist type studio space as well, things of that nature. Woodworking can always be a challenge just from an HVAC standpoint, because they would have to have very specialized requirements for ventilation. And you would then potentially get into, as long as it is just dust and debris, HVAC can handle that. If you get into true finishing, where they're applying polyurethanes and other chemicals, that's a much bigger building code issue for them to deal with, and they would have to. My guess is that this space would be a challenge for them financially to put that type of equipment in. So
That would be subject to a separate request anyway if they're looking to do something.
correct, and significant building code requirements that they would have to meet.
I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just wanted to clarify the proposed uses, and you'd said it a couple times, and I started to write, but then I lost track. You said office, laboratory, light manufacturing, and assembly. What came after that, if anything? I just want to, again, I'm thinking about the decision, and I'm thinking about how we're going to identify the proposed uses.
Office space, lab space, light manufacturing and assembly, indoor storage of materials and equipment. Indoor being critical to that. And I particularly think of that stuff when we're talking about those contractor type users that, could even be a plumbing contractor that has 27 toilets and boxes that they're waiting to install. It can be pipe, it can be fittings. An HVAC installer may very well have, ventilation equipment that they need. So.
Okay. We talked about tractor trailers. Would the applicant be agreeable to a condition that there be no tractor trailers on the property?
We could accept the condition with the caveat that we have the right to come back and describe that user to this board, seek to amend that condition. If we had a specific tenant that needed it, I would be happy to come back and explain it to the board. That way we could discuss the number. So I would accept the condition. I just want the board to be aware that, God forbid, we got a client or a tenant that needed 30,000 square feet and they say, we need one tractor trailer loading dock and we're going to get a delivery a week. As long as the board doesn't, when I come back with that tenant and I describe it, they don't say, well, you said never, ever.
Well, the transcript will reflect
I just
that, but I'm hoping that we maybe...
don't believe...
It's up to the board. I'm just making a suggestion that they may want to add that as a condition, because we talked about it.
Talking about deliveries.
Correct. Not a distribution facility.
Yeah, no.
That's not happening.
I think both. I think
On site, certainly. I think that would, in terms of like putting tractor beds sitting out in the parking lot, I don't believe that that's what's envisioned by the ordinance in this location. Dropping cabs and making it look more like a distribution facility. That's not the intent here.
Right, but deliveries, I think, was also a...
Yeah, if we get a tenant that tells us that they want a larger space, and because they have materials and equipment that once a week that they need a tractor trailer, we're going to have to make changes to the building. So during that time, I would simply request to come back and amend that condition, and that way I could present you the specifics of that tenant. But until we have that tenant, I think that condition is acceptable.
And the other condition I wanted to ask you about is you emphasized no exterior storage of materials or equipment. That you emphasized. I assume that you're agreeable to not have any use which will produce noxious or offensive odors, dust, fumes, smoke, gas, vibration, or noise that may constitute a public hazard. That's from the zoning ordinance that you cited. You're agreeable to that
We
as
are.
well? Okay. Thank you. That's it. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Sander. Mr. Rowe, do you have any comment? All right, thank you. Is there anyone from the public here who wishes to comment in favor or opposed? All right. Hearing none, can we have a motion for a special exception subject to the conditions and testimony and exhibits discussed this evening? Thank you, Mr. Aprilli. And we take a vote. Mr. Higgins? In favor. Ms. Lee? In favor. Mr. Aprilli? Chair votes in favor. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave.
Ron, first name?
Thank
No,
you.
it could be Dave. It's an excellent first name.
We're off the record now, correct, Paula?
Well, we'll gavel the next.
Paul's already
No,
drank.
as you know,